Good afternoon, dear friends, and good evening to those who will be watching us later on. And welcome to this amazing Saturday where we get together to bring a speaker, bring a new idea, or perhaps revisit an idea that we already touched before, but with different insights, different perspective to enlighten our lives together here at the SSB. Still streaming through the web. Hopefully, soon we'll be connected physically, but for the time being, let's enjoy what we have, enjoy one another. We send our blessings to you and to your homes as well as you open up your homes for each one of us to share this moment together. We would like to read a passage of the book Happy Life before we pray together, and then we pass the word to our dear speaker of this evening. Joanna de Angelis says the following: Preach the advantages of a healthy life and encourage your companions to try it. There is so much enthusiastic talk about astonishing pleasures, wearisome joys, and alienating excesses. The comments are not nearly so enthusiastic about the decadence of the aces and champions of unbalanced sex, or the hallucinations of those undergoing intoxicating experiences. The winners who made newspapers and magazine headlines and wore success on radio and TV yesterday are ostracized today, and in their decline are forgotten and despised, replaced by new playthings in the market of madness. Live with moral health and show others how good this is. On this note, we would like to invite each one of us to pray together on this ideal as we share this moment with you, as we contemplate this enlightening moment with one another, asking our dear Creator to guide us all during this moment. Ask our dear Creator and our Master Jesus to bless our homes and our hearts so that we can share and receive from one another the joy of this moment. May these teachings, may our presence, may our connections also touch the hearts and minds of all of those who could not be here with us. Praying for those who will be watching in the future as well. And most importantly, may these teachings also touch the hearts and minds of those whom we still have to clear things up and better ourselves with one another. We also extend this prayer to our dear friend Luiz Lima, who will conduct this talk tonight. May he be a good vessel to bring the teachings that Spiritism brings to us. And may each one of us exercise the teachings of this evening in our lives with one another through our interactions with our brothers and sisters. With your guidance, protection, and permission, we open this evening, and so be it. So today we have our dear friend Luiz Lima here with us, talking about social conflicts. What a topic, right?
Oh, what a
Who
topic.
does,
Tell me about
right?
it.
Who doesn't have enlightenment on the idea of social conflicts? But before I pass the word to you, Luis, let us formally introduce you. And before I formally introduce you, we always like to say that Luis Lima is just like one of us, a human being full of life, happy to talk, very enlightening as well, very eloquent with his talks. You may have heard of him before, as well as heard of his one of his talks before. And it's a pleasure to have him here with us today. And formally, as usual, we would like to say that Luiz Lima was born and raised in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. In 1990, Luiz moved to the United States, where he began his journey in Spiritism. Due to his vast knowledge in science, he became one of the most requested facilitators of Spiritism in both languages, Portuguese and English. Mr. Lima is a renowned lecturer in the Spiritist movement and participates in local and national seminars and events all year round. Mr. Lima holds a degree in electronic engineering and works in the computer network industry. And tonight, this afternoon into this evening, he will be talking about social conflicts. With no further ado, Luiz, thank you so much for being here with us, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. It's such a great honor, great opportunity for us to serve, right? Serve the great cause. So thanks for joining us and be with us here. This topic is, I would say, it's a very, we're living through it quite for a long time already. So social conflicts. All right. So it's such a broad topic that we need to pick a start. Okay. So we are going to start from the codification itself in the Spirit's book. There are several questions about it, but I picked something that is in this book, What is Spiritism, where Allan Kardec is going to summarize from the teachings of the spirits. And one of the things he says, which goes directly into social conflicts, is our imperfections as spirits on earth, on the planet here, right? We carry this predominance of evil. And this predominance of evil, it's what makes us bring our vices instead of virtues in our lives. So look at this question, answer, or this item 132 from What is Spiritism? Through the contact of their vices, their meaning us, right? Through the contact of their vices, they make themselves mutually unhappy and punish one another. That's very interesting, because if you think about it, what it means is I bring my vices and I interfere with somebody else, and that somebody else does the same to me. So the mutual interaction of vices creates this snowball. It's like this never-ending snowball. So it's hard to move away from where we are. And we keep having these conflicts one after another. If you look into the history of humanity, if you look at the history of the United States only, starting in 1776, only 7% of all this time we had no wars in place. 93% of the time we were at war. And if you do the same statistics for the globe instead of just here, you're not going to get anything much different. So it's this thing that it seems like it's never going away, but that's not true. We have to understand what's happening, how we got here, and how we can get away from it, how we can move on and leave these conflicts behind. So I'm going to start by saying that social conflicts are nothing else than an expansion of a personal internal conflict. Something in us is incorrect or not right. We're going to discuss that further. Something within is not the way it's supposed to be. So there is this internal conflict. And when we are going through this conflict, if we never take it outside means seek for help, talk to people, study, read. If we never do anything, then this conflict is going to be me and myself. And it's going to get to a point where it might lead to things such as depression, suicide, because it's all within, contained within, and I'm not seeking any help. And there's a break point. Okay, that break point would be depression or suicide. We're not talking about one lifetime. We're talking about a sequence of reincarnations, one after another. If we don't do anything, we'll get to that point. Now, as I go along and I go through the process, there are other spirits, incarnate or discarnate, that subscribe to my problem, to my conflict. They align with that because they go through the same thing, they feel the same thing. So in this life, for example, I will come across people who kind of share the same moments that I'm feeling, the same things that I'm feeling. So it kind of expands, it gets away from within, and it starts reaching other people around us. So around us meaning relatively close, co-worker, people that we see every day, relative, family members, neighbors. So now my conflict, it's me and others. So it's not only me. Now this thing can escalate. Okay, it can escalate, and I might get to a point where now it's me against a larger group, people that I don't know, and the way I react is going to depend. But that's how we get to things like massacres and terrorism and school shooting and all of those things, because there's a conflict that has not been addressed or is not being addressed, and it will take us to things like this. So all we see here is me against a small group, me against a larger group. Now, when somebody subscribes to my problem, now I'm not alone. Now it's a small group, me and 3 or 4 people, and we are going to attack the same thing. We're going to address this. If it doesn't get addressed, we're going to have things like bullying, where a small group attack one person, or they throw their conflicts toward one person. They can't resolve the internal conflict, and it will bring into our society things such as bullying. When this group is now taking its problems to another group, not to one person, but to another group, then we have two small groups. That's how we get to these gangs and guerrillas and all of those things. Now, when it escalates to the max, we're going to have a large group or entire society against another entire society. So that's when the war comes in place. Well, so the war is an extreme result of social conflict shared by several people. So the problem is, how am I going to stop this? Well, first, let's understand how we got here. So things, if you think about a sequence of lifetimes or reincarnations, as things go along, we get dissatisfied. We have to go through these trials and expiations. We don't like them. We want our questions answered. We want somebody to address our problems. And this goes on and on and on and on. And there's a point where I will finally have to make a decision. So I can go both ways. The green way means that I'm going to take all my problems, bring them all to me here. I'm going to put them right in front of me here on a desk, and I'm going to address everything. I'm going to understand what's happening, and I'm going to take it from here myself. That's the path of responsibility. The green path is the path of responsibility, where I'm going to analyze my past choices, try to understand why I got to where I got and how things turned the way they turned to be. It's an analytical process, and I'm going to have to go through a process of moral refinement if I want to get away from this thing. So it depends on me. It's in my hands. The problem is in my hands. Now it's me. It's on me. That's the path of responsibility. But there's another path, which is a dangerous path. That's the path of victimization. Path of victimization means this. Well, everything is wrong in my life. I don't like this. And you guys are all responsible for it. You did something that put me in this situation here now where I am. So I'm a victim of something that you guys did. Well, the problem with this is, for me to get for the problem to go away, and for me to be happier or whatever it is, you need to undo what you did. I'm just a victim. You did something. When you stop doing it, or when you undo what you did, then I'm going to be okay. That's not going to happen. And I'm going to be waiting and waiting. That generates revolt, because you're not doing what is expected from you. From my point of view, you're not doing it. And I'm still here, and I'm suffering, and things are not good. So there's a tremendous amount of revolt that gets generated out of the situation, because it's not being well understood, until a break point, which is what I call the moral implosion, where I can't take it. I can't take it anymore. That leads to what we see before: depression, suicide, things like this. So when you reach the break point, if you're on the victimization path, when you reach the break point, you're going to have to wait for a savior. an external savior that has to come in, and do whatever he has to do to get me back in place and bring my happiness back. That's not going to happen. I reached the moral implosion point. It's a break point. And the external savior is not going to be here. So I will be in conflict, personal, internal conflict, for as long as I wait for this savior. And again, this propagates out to the next person, to the next one. And that's what we saw before. If we look into some historical events, we're going to find something very interesting, because not all the great names in history came here to promote war. All right? Not all of them. Some did, some did not. So we're going to analyze both sides. Let's see first those that I'm going to call the green guys, the green guys that came on board to do something good. They came to show good things, to teach us good things. I'm not going to include Jesus here because he's a special case, but other people that came after him. So St. Francis of Assisi, so he came over to reinforce the moral values that Jesus brought us. And he did a beautiful, nice job promoting all of those good things that we had known for more than 1,000 years. So he's one of these good guys who came not to promote any social conflict, but the other way around. Here's another one, Martin Luther, right? So in about 1500 or 1517, more precisely, he looks at the church and say, hey, hold on. He puts his two hands up and says, hold on, something is wrong. We got to fix this. The church is going the wrong way. We're going to have to do a small adjustment here, a slight adjustment. And that's what he did with, he had very good intentions. He did. He promoted a different type of church away from those Inquisition and everything else. So he came for the good. Here's another one. We don't have to talk much about him, right? But his work in terms of bringing good things to the planet, I would say, to humanity, it's incredible what he was able to do, especially in just 12 years. So much he did in 12 years by bringing us, clarifying in details, in deep details, what Jesus had taught originally. Here's another one, Mother Teresa, more towards our times here. Mother Teresa is one of these people who came for the good, doing good things. Luther came right here in the U.S. He was just great man with a cause, trying to teach people moral values and whatever Jesus came to show. And here's another one that we Brazilians well known about it, Chico Xavier. He was this incredible person. He was actually one of the candidates. He was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize at one point. But anyway, so when you look at all these people, without going into a bias, that's not the purpose. But when you look at these people, they came to reinforce the good. They came for the good against any sort of social conflict of any form. Now, that was not always the case in history. We had some that were exactly the other way around. These were the guys who created the most, I would say, heavy conflicts within society, humanity. Here's one of them, Herod. Herod wanted to kill all the young boys because he heard that a new king, that was Jesus, right, would take over and so and so and so. So he kills all the newborns, all the young boys up to 2 years old. That's just incredible. That's just incredible. Look, think of the amount of internal conflict that a person like this has to be going through to produce something like this, right? Awful. Here's another one, Nero. Nero wanted all the power in the world by himself. As we know, that he was the Roman Empire emperor, and the Roman Empire was going through some changes, and he just decided that in order to achieve his goals, a lot of people were in his way. At least that was, his point of view, and they had to be taken away. Had to they couldn't just be there. So he killed a lot of people. He was one of the emperors that went after Christians with, very, very intensely. So he killed a lot of people because of power. Here's another one. When the Roman Empire in the early 400s started to decline, the tribes from the northern part of the empire, they had their eyes in Rome because Rome was where the money was, right? The power was in Rome, the money was in Rome. So they had their eyes in Rome. So all these tribes start to come down towards Rome. The most significant tribe was called the Huns, right? And their leader, Attila, he was the kind of person that if you show up in front of him, you would just kill for no reason at all. He was this massive killer that was coming down Europe. Everybody in front of him would get killed for no reason, just because he wanted to get to Rome and nobody could be in front of him. So this is an interesting story here. This guy, Urban II, it's a pope. So let's do a parenthesis here. What is a pope? A pope is supposedly the representative of Jesus Christ on earth that is supposed to carry out his message, deliver his message, disseminate as much as he can his message, and form churches and congregations in a smaller scale, so these could also propagate the word of Jesus, the messages of Jesus, and his teachings. So in 1096, Urban II, the Pope, he gathers 60,000 Christians and tell them to go down to Jerusalem to kill all the Islamic population. 60,000. So 60,000 people get together, go to Jerusalem and assassinate all the Islamic population. Now, this is a pope. Look at the conflict this person has to be living to be able to produce something like this. It's awful. It's just awful. Here's another one, more like a modern times here. Joseph Stalin, and the creation of the Soviet Union. The point about Stalin was he wanted power, of course, so he raised to power. And the way he saw power is this: I'm only going to be in power for as long as nobody comes my way. Who's going to come my way? Those who are the most educated ones, those who are in schools and universities, those who have nice jobs and so professors. So he killed all these. Everybody that had higher education got killed. Everybody. So when the Soviet Union was created and later on when it was dismantled, they had no professionals of higher education. They had to start from the ground up. Just awful. This one, we don't want to talk about him anymore. We all know the story. But think about this, the conflict that a person like this has to go through to be able to produce all these 6 years, to be able to produce what they produced, to bring what they brought. Okay, so I gave you 6 of those green guys, the guys who are here or who were here to sustain the message of Jesus, the good messages and good things, and these 6 here who are exactly the other way around. And then the question comes, if we are in the point that we are in humanity right now, did we follow the right leaders? Did we follow the green guys? Or did we and are we still following the red guys? Right? If we had concentrated our efforts on the green guys, most likely we wouldn't be where we are right now in humanity. We would have seen a different outcome. So we are stuck because we signed up or we subscribed to those who promote social conflicts of any form because internally they have their own personal conflicts. Well, how did it all happen? So let's look at something here. This is the year 2012, so we're basically 10 years ago. In January of 2013, the American press um, promoted several different journalists from several different agencies. They wanted to kind of come up with a list of massive shootings within the country that happened in the year before, 2012. So this is January 2013. When they compiled the list, it was so huge, so big, so huge that nobody would read to the end because the list was massive, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lines that would be on that list. So they decided to use criteria to eliminate some of them. So the criteria is it has to be something that was obviously significant in terms of a bad event, but it had to make national news. So, for example, a small shooting in a small school in a small city that never made it to nationwide news would not be on this list. So, this list, the criteria is it has to be significant and it has to be national news. So they compiled this list. It's sorted by date, as you can see. So now it's me personally. When I looked at that list, the first thing that I see is, well, I want to look at where these things are happening because let's just say, as an example, if you tell me this is a list of 14 shootings, okay? Out of 14 shootings, 12 of them took place on the same state. Oh, we got something going on that state. When you look at the list, that's not it. It's all scattered. It's nationwide in all different points. You can see here also the number of dead people, the number of wounded. Under dead, the +1 means that the shooter died. So, for example, in the first line, Norcross, Georgia, 4 + 1 means 4 people were assassinated by the shooting plus the shooter himself. And then I said, well, how about age? Is this problem, contained for a certain age between, a certain group of people? And I said, yeah, let me look at the ages. And I look at the ages, as you can see here on the screen, and it doesn't tell me anything. Again, if you tell me there are 14 shooters or shooters, yeah, and 10 of them were in the same group of, let's just say, from between 20 and 25 years old, we got a problem in that group. That's not the case. It's not the case. And you also have a column for weapons. The letters that you see here, there are 3 question marks, and there are 3 question marks because they didn't have the answers when this was compiled in January of 2013. Weapons, L stands for legal, S for stolen. As you can see, most of them were legal. So these shooters, they had the rights to carry those things. Out of the list, 2 of them, they come up different for us because of the amount of data that we got from the press, us as public, right, as citizens, because it was so intense on the TV and on the news that, it caught the attention. One of them is this guy here, James Egan Holmes. I don't know if you remember, the people were in Aurora, Colorado, watching a Batman movie, the premiere of the movie. He went into the theater and he shot a bunch of people. The second one is down here, number one before the last one, Newtown, Connecticut. We're going to talk about this one specifically because as Spiritists, there's a great deal of learning here. So we are going to come back to Newtown a little later. Now, why did we get into this situation? Spirit Viana de Carvalho, he has a great thought about it. This is what it says. This is exactly what it says. Stop. Go back 3,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago. What did we have in terms of, religion, guidance? Just put it this way, divinity, whatever. Paganism. Paganism had 3 things: objects of idolatry, rituals, and sacrifices. The objects of idolatry were, you had several gods, god of the seas and the sun and the moon and the earth, whatever, the rain, several gods. They had rituals that they had to perform. Either there were parties, meetings, whatever. And they had to perform sacrifices. The sacrifices were going towards, that's what they were at the time, towards their gods or divinities. That's paganism 3,000, 4,000 years ago. Viana de Carvalho says, stop again, come back. Come back to the days, to the current present moment. And he says, what we have today, I would call neo-paganism. Neo-paganism. Where we have the three same things, objects of idolatry, rituals, and sacrifices. But they are not the same. The concept of having these three things is the same, but the objects are different. So instead of a god for the moon, the sea, and so, no. We have these moguls, right? So we have this, quote, god for money, power, sex, drugs, and weapons. Those are the five more common things that society in general consider to be the thing. We also have rituals, fashion, brands, gadgets. We also have sacrifices. What are these sacrifices? It's submit to the wealth and power that we see out there in the world. We do anything to be wealthy. We do anything to have power. When I say we, I say society in general, not necessarily me, not necessarily you that you're listening to me, but in general, that's what happens. And then Viana de Carvalho is going to say, we need to look into neo-paganism because that's what we're living today and it's not going to be fun. And he says, let's analyze this. Neo-paganism leads us to three avenues. First of all, moral bankruptcy. Second, material immortality. We're going to discuss that. Third, spiritual strabismus. And he's going to explain what they are. So moral bankruptcy means we do things because we want to do. People do things because they want to do. It doesn't matter if it's morally, correctly, ethically right. We just do it. Just do it. Then we get to all these Hitler things and all of those things, right? Material immortality. The example for material immortality is very interesting. If you subscribe to the materialistic paradigm, think about this. Let's think, just as an exercise for our thoughts, let's just think that all the matter, all the power and everything that you can conquer in this world is the size of a desk, a little desk. So everything you can have is on that desk, and you have it all because you own the desk. The desk is yours. So you can do anything. Nobody's going to do anything different. Nobody's going to, come against you, nothing. You own it. Now, the problem is if somebody comes up, they go to the corner of your desk and they take a little piece, a bite. They just bite that. It's not going to matter much. But then a second person bites. A third person bites. The more bites, all right, the more pieces of your desk they take away, the less you have. If your happiness is based on material things, every time somebody bites on it, you become less happy. That's the logic behind it. When a lot of people are biting it, or the perception is there's a lot of people taking my happiness away, how do they react? Social conflicts. And another thing that he says is spiritual strabismus, which is strabismus is when you have a difficulty to focus on things, right? And you look at them and then you don't look anymore, and then you close your eyes, then you look on the sides. That's what he calls spiritual strabismus, death penalty, for example. So it's on the news at times. Sometimes it comes up back on the news. It stays on the news because of one or two cases. It stays on the news for 3, 5, 7 days, maybe 10, and it goes away, and everybody looks on the side. Nobody cares anymore. Same for the idea of a suicide bomber. Suicide bomber is not necessarily what we see, the image that we have in another part of the world. Not necessarily that. Suicide bomber is anybody that, in order to make bad things happen to others, they don't care about making bad things for themselves. So suicide bombers are everywhere, not in a certain part of the planet. And at times, things like this come up. It comes and goes. So we don't look at all for that. Scandals of all types come up to the media, and then they stay on the media for 3, 4, 5 days. They go away. We don't care anymore. Abortion, same thing. It will be on the media for a few days, and then we go with our lives, and we don't care anymore. Same for weapons of massive destruction. So Gillian de Carvalho says, with these 3 avenues, they all lead to a society that believes in false values. One of the values is everybody does. It's not a value, but it's perceived as something okay. Everybody does, I'm doing it. You shouldn't be that way. Here's another one. We want to do things the best. All of us, it's just normal. When we do things, we want to do the best, which is different than do the best, whatever it takes. Because whatever it takes might lead to, I need to get people out of my way. I need to eliminate these people because they are in my way. Or whatever it takes is not part of anything moral. False value, possess more than others. We all are inclined to, if we subscribe to this, we all are inclined to possess more than others. It doesn't matter what I possess. I don't need things, but I need to have them. Express power and authority. So we believe that power and authority are the way to go, so we go after these things. Everybody does, everybody wants it, and we keep going. The needs to demonstrate superiority of any type, in a school classroom, in your job, even within your family, and just demonstrate superiority means you're good, you're really good. It's not a moral value, it's false value. And bullying is another one, which is a totally separate subject, but you get the idea. So this is the logic behind everything that Gillian de Carvalho shows us. Okay, so now we're going to go back in history with this in mind. We're going to investigate some of the passages in history. So here's passage number 1. Pontius Pilate, he knows, and it's written in the books of history, right? He knows that Jesus is no criminal and not supposed to be there, not supposed to be condemned, nothing like this. He knows. So he tries to make it happen in a way that Jesus walks out free. He can't do it because he's under pressure from, different people in power, from the public. So he has this great idea. Let's bring a true known, well-known criminal and ask the people to make a judgment. Who goes to the cross? Jesus or this other guy, Barabbas? So the population makes his choice, Barabbas, and Jesus goes to the cross. You see, that doesn't change the fact that Pilate knows Jesus is going to the cross and he shouldn't be. The outcome was that one, but he still knows that Jesus is not supposed to be there. Let's bring this thing to our personal life. Every time we make a wrong choice, knowingly, we got the right and the wrong, knowingly we choose the wrong side, we are signing off our actions as Pontius Pilate. So if you go back in history now, you go like, how come something like this happened? How come they put Jesus on the cross? We were there, either as incarnates at the time or discarnates. We were part of the psychic atmosphere, psychosphere. We made it happen. We sustained this thing. And how many times a day, or let's make it easier. How many times in a year we make the wrong choice knowing what the right one is? And if we do this, we're still sustaining the very same thing. We can't sign off on our actions with the name Pontius Pilate because we're always going to be making the wrong choice instead of the right one, knowingly. Here's another event of history. The Crusades. We spoke about the Crusades a little bit ago with the Pope, the Urban II, the Pope in 1096. We presented to the world unarmed Jesus carrying guns and weapons, which has nothing to do with Jesus and his messages, his teachings, nothing to do with that. So, you see, bring this to your personal history. Let's bring it to mine, to yours, everybody. Every time we arm ourselves to impose our conflicts on somebody else, we are signing our actions as Pope Urban II. We sustain this thing. We still do, because we do this thing personally, each one of us, not collective like this. But remember, a collective social conflict is nothing more than a bunch of personal social conflicts. We still sustain things like this. Here's another one, the Inquisition. 500 plus years, at least 500 years of Inquisition. What is the Inquisition? I go to you and I say, this is what you're going to believe. And if you don't, I'm going to set fire on you. So every time we impose what we believe is right upon other people, and we sustain that and we force that in, we are signing off our actions as the Great Inquisitor. So the Inquisition, was it an event in history? Yes, but it's still here for a lot of us, personally speaking. Bring it to your personal history. We still do this several times in a year, maybe several times in a month. And here's the last one. We spoke about him too, right? We don't want to get too much into this because it's just horrible. But think of the idea. It's the same logic. We still do the same thing. We still impose wars with nasty consequences. When we speak bad about somebody, we don't know how far this is going to go. We don't know where this is going to go. We don't have any control whatsoever. But we are still doing the same thing. So did it happen in 1944? Yeah, it did. But we sustained this thing. And we still do. Sadly, unfortunately. So you see, these events in history, they were not isolated cases. Oh no, Jesus and Barabbas, something like this is never going to happen again. It does. Not collectively with, thousands of people making a judgment and a choice between two men, but we do this ourselves. And that's got to stop. And why are we doing this? Why are we still going through this? Here's an idea. Jesus came to reinforce the original message brought to us by Moses. Moses goes up the mountain, right? Mount Sinai. He comes back with the 10 commandments. Those commandments are moral values. So let's pick one. For example, don't kill. So you can't kill. Moses comes down and you can't kill. Can you imagine Moses presenting this to his population? They almost killed them. Literally, because they would argue like this. How come I can't kill? If I have been killing people all the time, I killed people this morning, and now, as of now, I can't. It's unbearable for these people. They cannot comprehend, right? So they revolt. In order to address the moral values that were being brought to society, Moses had to add a set of social laws, or we call disciplinary laws. So the law now is you can't kill, but if you kill, you're going to jail. For example, if you kill, you're going to jail is not a divine law. It's not a moral value. It's a social law. It's a disciplinary law that sustains one of the moral values. Now, think about, go back 3,000 years ago, right? 4,000 years ago. I'm talking to somebody and it gets heated. The argument gets heated. easiest thing to do is to run my sword through this person's brain and just go live my life. Or he will do the same to me. It's the easiest thing. I'll just run my sword through. Yeah, okay. Shut up. Right? Now, with the social laws, things change a little bit because if I do this, I'm going to jail. So the social laws sustaining the moral values have a purpose, which is change our attitudes. That was the goal behind the social laws, disciplinary laws. So now, if I'm talking to somebody, we get into a heated argument, I'm not going to do that again. I say, oh my God, no, I'm just going to get out of here because this guy is, I don't like where this is going. But if I do something, if I take this attitude, I'm going to, end up in prison, and I don't want to have it. So it changes, or supposedly it was made to change our attitudes. So the thing comes from the top to the bottom. And when we come from the top to the bottom, we are in line with the laws of God. The problem is, let's go back to our example. Don't kill. If you kill, you're going to jail, so I'm not going to kill. But let's say that I killed somebody, even with the social law in place. Except that I'm a very influential person. I have a lot of power. I have a lot of money. So by the book, I should have been sent to jail. But because I'm so influenced and so powerful, I'm going to propose that the law changes. And the new law is going to be, you can kill. If you kill, you're going to jail. But if it's your first crime, we're not going to do anything. That changes everything because now the law no longer enforces a moral value, enforces my attitude. My attitude generated adjusted social laws that later on will produce what we think are moral values, pseudo-moral values, but they're not moral values at all. And that's what our society lives by, because instead of coming the green line, in line with the laws of God, we come from the bottom up, against the laws of God, because of selfishness and all the desire for power and everything else. And what happens? Social conflicts. Social conflicts. So everything is happening because we made the attitudes the base for everything. So I like to take this attitude. Yeah, let's put a law that will endorse that. And with that, everybody does it now. Let's do it. You see, it's all going wrong. So this is an important thing that we need to understand. It explains a lot why our society is, it's all upside down. Because the values, the logic behind it has been turned upside down. So all these values that we are supposed to have, and we learned at one point, right? We put them into our briefcase and set foot for our journey. Later on, several lives after that, we open up the same briefcase. And what we get is not the same thing that we had. So things changed. So instead of charity, now I have competition. Instead of collaboration, now I have competition. Instead of love, I have hatred. And I can't have both at the same time. I can't have love and hatred at the same time. I have to sell one to buy the other. I can't have both. I can't have humility and pride at the same time. It's either or. So you see, our values changed. And the values that we value, right? The values that we value are those from a new pagan society that's looking at things upside down. And then I wanted to go back to what we mentioned before. Newtown. It's one of the mass shootings that we had in 2012 in this country here, close to Christmas time, right? So it was December 14, 2012. Okay, let me explain what you see on the screen. In red, Adam Lanza is the perpetrator. He is the shooter. He kills a lot of people, 31 casualties, right below his mother. Then the next block shows the staff, school staff that was, they lost their lives. And further down, wounded. They were school staff, but they were just wounded. They survived. On the right side, you have the names of students that lost their lives. Okay, you see a name here in green, Victoria Lee Soto. She was a teacher. Her story is very interesting. He, she was in the second classroom from the entrance of the school. First of all, for Adam Lanza to do what he did, can you imagine the fury, the amount of conflict that is going on? He's totally blind to what he's doing, right? So he walks into the school, he goes to the first classroom, shoots a lot of people. What happens is the people in the second classroom, led by teacher Victoria Soto, she heard those things and she identified, not only by the sound, but because of the screams, she figured this is a shooting. This guy's going to come over. So what did she do? She took all her 16 students and put them in the closet. You see, everything is happening, and he has the ability to think straight. He goes to all the kids and says, you stay here in the closet where they have the school materials and books and everything. You stay here. You don't say a word. And she closes the door, and she's now alone in the classroom. Adam Lanza walks into the second classroom, hers. What does he see? A woman, nothing else. This is of no avail to him. He doesn't want this. He wants a lot of people. He wants to shoot a lot of people. One person is no big deal. So what he does is he do some shots facing the air, the ceiling. So she shoots up. When he does that, the kids get panicked. They all come out. All 16 people come out. And they come out around her, Victoria Soto. So what she does is she turns her back to the shooter and protects all the kids with her body. He shoots her. She dies. None of the 16 students die. She saved all of them. All 16. Of course, later on, President Obama, congratulated the family, and so there's several merit orders and so on and so on. So now, Victoria Soto dies as a hero, but while this thing is happening, her sister, Gillian Soto, receives a phone call. This is what's happening on the school. And she makes it to the school. She gets her car, drives to the school. When she gets out of the car, a photographer takes her picture. This picture became the picture of America for several months. This picture was on our news and our internet for several months. We as Spiritists need to look at this picture and extract everything that we need to. So I'm going to leave this picture here on the side so we can see it. Look at this woman. Look at the despair. So in a first moment, when you look at this picture, the first question that comes is, it looks like she's saying, oh my God, why is this happening to me? You see the hand on the chest. Why is this happening to me? That's what it looks like. If you stare to the picture, if you keep staring to the picture, there's a second layer, which is, what do I do now? You see, she's inconsolable. What do I do now? She can't think straight. And if you keep looking for the picture, there's a third layer. Can somebody help me, please? 3 layers on the same picture. You can read 3 things here. All right, so now we are at layer 3. Can somebody help me? I want you to think of this picture not as a picture, but as the real scene. You are there looking at Gillian Soto, front to front, just like we see on the image here. The kids are screaming. There's a lot of talking. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of confusion and running. There's a lot of crying. And you're looking at this woman, and she's asking for help. Can we help? Can somebody help her? Well, Let's go back to our society, right? Let's go back to our society and see what society can offer as a help, right? So let's take the number one perceived value of our society, money. So you would go to Gillian right now, as she is, with the phone and all that thing happening, and you would say, listen, I know you're going through a hard time, but I'm going to offer a lot of money. Here's a check, a signed check with no amount, given to you by the President of the United States. And you sign off and you just put the amount that you want and it's all yours. Do you think this is going to help anything? No. Let's get another value, power. Here's a document from the President of the United States, signed. And whatever you write here that you want to do and you want to control, it's all yours. You control everything. If you want to be the president, he steps out, you step in. Does it help? Let's try another one. I think you need some time, relaxing time, because look at the way you are. Why don't you come with me? Does it help? You're making me run out of options. Well, let's try. Okay. You look just ugly and awful this way. Forget about everything. Let's just head down to the bar. We'll drink the night away, and that's it. Tomorrow morning is going to be a different day. Didn't help, right? Okay, I'm going to try the last one. Here in front of you are all the weapons that the country has. And here's all the ammunition that the country has. It's all yours right now. You can do anything you want. Does it help? It doesn't help. So what kind of values are these that don't solve a simple problem of somebody crying? She needs a good Samaritan. She doesn't need any of those things. What does a good Samaritan has to have with him to make things right? He has to have a briefcase with certain things. In the parable, the guy had oil, he had things that he could use for the wounded. Her wound is not physical. It's emotional, it's different, psychological. Do we have in our briefcase what it takes to be the Good Samaritan? What do we do then? What do we do? If you were there, not looking at the picture, if you can place yourself in the scene, she walks out of the car that way, you look at her. What do we do? I don't know if we know what to do. Do we know what to do? Are we prepared to be a good Samaritan? Jesus would know what to do. Do we know exactly what to do, or are we as confused as she is? So you see, there are things that we can't do because we need to live by other values. If you look at all of our systems here, all of them, these systems, all of them, regardless, we're not going to deal with this too much. All of these systems started off with morality, all of them, politics, economy, everything grew from moral values, all of them. Politics starts 4,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. The economy, as we know, it starts 500 years ago. When we look at these systems now, what is sustaining them? You can barely tell. So they are dismantling because there is no support anymore. They're not sustained by anything. So I wanted to bring you 8 ideas that Spiritism will bring to us to live through situations like this. Number 1, the idea of the Savior. If you're asking when the Savior arrives, you're victimization. You follow the victimization path. Responsibility path does not ask for a savior. You make yourself a savior. Spiritism teaches that. Number two, remember the neo-paganism. Where are the moral assets that we have? We have to question that. The moral assets are inside, but I have to assess them properly, not use external values to guide myself. These moral values cannot be traded off for material things. No, they cannot. A happy society as a group, as a society, right? We need to identify the moral values and the assets. Money, power, sex, drugs, these are not assets. These are not moral values. These will lead to social conflicts and sustain social conflicts for as long as we sustain them. Weapons. Do we want destruction of weapons or weapons of destruction? It's a choice. It's called free will. Number 6, responsibility. I put the little picture, a little image here of a goalie, a goalkeeper in a soccer game. You see, on a soccer game, you have 22 players in the field, 11 for one team, 11 for the other. Of course, all the players, they move around the field. Almost except one, the goalie is there all the time. He has a very clear role in the game. The others, they don't not necessarily have a very clear role because they move around. So they are on the left side of the field, now they're on the right side, now they're on the middle. So there's a strategy in there. The goalie, the goalkeeper, has one responsibility. He has one thing to do only, which is not let the ball come in, not let the ball get in. Now think about this. If the game is taking place on the other side, okay, let's say I'm the goalie and my team is on the attack. So we have 21 players right now close to the other guys, to the other team's goalie. And I'm not doing anything because the game is, yards, hundreds of yards away. So now I'm just pacing by my post, just pacing like this. I go left and I go right. And suddenly I'm not paying attention. Somebody else takes the ball from our team and comes into our direction to the point that they perceive that I'm not paying attention and they score. And then you're going to say, well, but I wasn't paying attention because the game was on the other side of the game, of the field. You see, responsibility is responsibility. The goalie is responsible for it all the time, 90 minutes, not only when the ball is nearby. Responsibility is not relative. It's all the time. All the time. We are responsible for sustaining this. We sustain things. When Jesus went to the cross, we have to understand that we have a responsibility to not do it again. And finally, I want to bring this up to you, humility. We go life after life after life after life. And because of our condition and our moral condition, our moral advancement, which is not so high for most of us, what happens is things go bad. And, when you are 20, 25, things should start to be different and they go bad and we get sick and we got sicker. Then we go to the first doctor, second doctor, third. Things get worse and worse. Time is running, we get aged. And then there's a point where we say, where we don't know what to do anymore. It's just too hard. We don't know what to do anymore. At that point, that's our break point. We stop, look up and say, Jesus help me, or God help me. Okay, then I'm going to ask you, if you go to the Bible, any version, any translation, any language, if you go to Gospel According to Spiritism, any version, any language, any translation, none of them, you're never going to see something like this. Okay, keep living, try everything. When nothing works, be humble. Bring humility up. It's exactly the other way around. Humility was never said to be the last resort. Resource. Never said to be the last resource. It's never where you go last because you ran out of options. It's the other way around. It's the first. But you see, we sustain the idea that humility is always the last. So when we look at all these things, all these, um, all the topic that we decided to bring to you today, and all the logic behind it, using, the Spirit's book, uh, Diana de Carvalho, there's a little bit of Emmanuel, Joanna de Angelis. When you look at this from their side, it's almost like shameful that we do what we do. So we can't complain very much. As long as we sustain these things, I'm in no position to complain. So hopefully you like the topic that we brought to you today, and we'll be here for questions, comments, suggestions. Thank you very much for your participation, and we'll be around.
Luis, thank you so much. This was quite a bit of information, and I am impressed, very impressed with the way that you broke it down, and we were able to grasp everything from the beginnings of your explanation, promoting to us that the predominance of evil is, the root of many of our issues right now. I'm just amazed of what you have brought to us here. The statistics, some of the unfortunate things that has happened in our society, and it makes us think, right? Where is our position in this whole thing? And I think that is definitely a key element for us spiritists as Christians to really analyze and and really start thinking about our goal, right? Our and I'm speaking the physical goal, like
Mhm.
as the goalie that you brought
Right,
there.
right.
That's I'm quite sure Daniel loved that analogy there because he loves soccer. So it's always something, and we can do this in any use any analogy, right, that we think is
Oh,
important for us, and I think that is definitely a good way to start and say, am I really paying attention, or am I really dozing off, right, when things are happening around me and I'm not really paying attention. And it happens quite often that sometimes we snooze, and guess what, we lose, and we don't lose just me, but those around us as well, us as a society. So thank you for it. Take a breather. I'm just gonna go ahead and acknowledge those who are here with us. Yes, Alba. Certainly, virtual hugs to everyone. I'm glad that we were able to connect and stay here together. Abby as well, Daniel, Rosaura, and obviously Yasko brought some questions to us here that we're going to be sharing soon. I have Abby saying, "What an excellent topic! It takes a lot of bravery to dig deep within ourselves. Sometimes we may see something that we may not like, and it's true. We have to confront, right? One of the things that
absolutely.
go ahead, Luis.
No, no, absolutely, yeah, and that's when we face ourselves, and that's the break point. That's the turning point.
Certainly, and that's one of the things that I got from this as well. We cannot change if we don't face it, right? You brought the word, I forget now, strabism, right? That the sometimes we we tend to look away from things that are happening to us, right, or happen directly at our society, just to say, well, no, it's not for me to change and whatnot. So I think that it's a great point. We need to analyze the issue. We need to face the issue so we can change it. If we don't do that, if we just keep brushing it off, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, we
So
are a Strabic society. That's what it is.
definitely,
Strabism.
yep. Daniel actually brought the first question here, saying, "How can we build virtues or evolve spiritually without face conflicts?"
Well, we are in a conflict. That's why we are where we are, right? So what we need is not necessarily face conflict in terms of there's going to be a mount on my path because I'm already in a mount. So I think we need to, when you start to look at us from by using the examples in history. Oh, I did this. I chose Barabbas, and I was Hitler too in a way, and in our personal history, you're already in conflict, but you're getting away from it. You're not going to go into it. You're already in it. So how can we create the virtues without going through conflict? Because we are already in conflict, just pick the virtue if we can. I mean, it's a difficult thing. When we start looking at things from the virtue point of view, it's different. Somebody comes to talk to me, and they come harsh and tone of voice that I don't like. I can do the same, right? And conflict, and I'm going to be sustaining conflict, or I can do the other phase. Okay, stop. Hold on. Calm down, take a time, let's talk, sit here, let's talk. You see, that's trading vices for virtues. And that's what's going to make us go on our evolutionary path, turning things around without having necessarily to dive in more conflict. We're already in the conflict.
Perfect. Thank you. And this is one of the things that we've been talking quite a bit together in terms of the issues that we see on the planet, right, Luis? We see the different wars, the different conflicts that we are facing now as a society globally, and we tend to extrapolate or make it even bigger than it already is, forgetting that these little wars are inside of us, right? And,
Yeah,
and in some ways, the reason we have the wars outside of the house is because we're having these wars within ourselves, right?
exactly.
One thing that I the word that you used that was very interesting at the beginning as well, and I took note down: subscribers. I love that
Yeah,
word. I never heard of it, but it makes so much sense. It's like we have obviously spiritism. We dive into the idea of the pontification of, or of other minds, right? Either incarnated and discarnated minds, and we say the obsessor, but there are subscribers for everything that we do, everything that we think, everything that we
yeah,
how we act. People subscribes to those ideas, to those models, right? Whether bad or
right.
good. That it just makes things more, makes things bigger. So I think that and Joanna de Angelis also, with the message that we brought at the beginning, and it was randomly open, talks about how we need to um, make put in the news, or talk about more about the good things, right? But all that we do
Yeah.
is talk about the negative things. So amazing. I mean, it just connected with one another there. So thank you for that.
Mhm.
Next question comes from Yasko, and she says, great topic. Looking back historically, the massacres imposed by the evil figures you have cited, are there any positive repercussion to society progress of their passage among us? Not no learning, as we tend to believe after current continuing mass shooting. I guess is there any? There's no learning, or I guess she was just. I don't know if you.
Yeah, I think, yeah, these things happen because we sustained. So it was a mistake, obviously. When we understand that we sustained, I'm going to put my two hands on my head and say, oh, my God, I made a mistake. I need to do different next time. If I think somebody else made a mistake, okay, the shooter made a mistake, or the mother of the shooter, because she gave birth to the shooter, as we see many times in the news, then I'm not going to do it. I'm not learning from it. I learn from it when it touches me. But you see, that's the idea of the Savior. Everything touches me. I am responsible for all things at all times. I'm not going to wait for somebody to come one day and say, remember that shooting? Oh, yeah, you sustained, because it might take 3 million years for that to happen. So we need to understand that we are part of it. We sustain the psychosphere, we sustain the psychic atmosphere to make it happen. So, yes, we are responsible. So I made a mistake. So how can I not make that mistake again? Okay, what was my mistake? This. I'm not doing this again. Right?
Right, right. So on just a follow up on this question, what would it be, Luis Lima, the the point, or when do we also not impose, but how much do we go to say to those who we see making a mistake, or that just made a mistake and we try to help, or should we impose? I mean, what's when we draw the line?
Okay, impose is a word that does not work for spiritism, right?
Thank you.
We don't have that word in our vocabulary. Imposing is always wrong. There's free will. Everybody's got free will. So they will, just like you and I, right? We are free to make our own choices. Of course, there are consequences, good or bad, right, for our choices. But we need to we need to allow people to make their own choices. Of course, we can help them. We can offer support. We can offer, a talk here and there. Yeah, no, oh, let's talk about this thing. What do you think of the subject? Oh, yeah, yeah, let's talk. You can promote what you think because you are carrying these spiritist ideas with you. So you can put it out, but you cannot force anything, cannot impose. You might even be worse. If you try to impose, they're going to turn against you. That's Allan Kardec says that in the Gospel according to Spiritism. The idea of the church imposing is what made everybody walk away from it. Right? So,
And for sure is the basis as well of many of the elements of that we see nowadays in terms of the imposition, right? Governments and politics, and even what we so the ideals of life that will take us somewhere. When it's imposed, it quite often creates more disharmony than anything else, right?
right, but for example, if there's a certain, let's say, a dictator somewhere, okay,
Hmm.
that dictator is not by himself. He has a bunch of subscribers, which are those, right? Which are those around him. The politicians or military, whoever is part of that group that retains the power. So he is able to do that and keep going because there are subscribers sustaining the idea.
Very well, very well. We're gonna move on then to Daniel again, saying, based on these information, on this information you have presented, what is your advice to start promoting the change in our society?
Yeah, the change has to come from the micro, which is the minimum society, which is me. So it's one person, because the conflicts, they all come from within. And for that to happen, we need to educate people. We need to empower people to have access to information. That's what we try to do here in the U.S. with Spiritism, actually around the globe. That's what Spiritist centers are for. The Spiritist centers are not trying to change anybody, is not trying to tell you what is right, what's wrong, what to do, what not to do. Spiritist centers are empowering people with information so they can make better decisions, change themselves, and the society changes automatically.
Perfect, thank you. We'll bring a comment here from Rosaura where she says, Luis, thank you so much for this message. It is really a complex topic, and you made so easy for us to understand. Indeed, I agree with you, Rosaura, and I'm very thankful for having Luis here with us, talking about this. And then we move on to Abby when she says, social media can be used in a positive way or quite the opposite. What are your thoughts on so many children, young adults, allowing bullies who have pushed them to committing suicide?
Yeah, it's just social media is neutral, right? What makes it good or bad is, the intelligent principle that uses the media, right? So you can use the media for great things like we're using right now, right? All of us here right now on a live talking about good things, the messages, the teachings of Jesus, or you can use for bullying, cyberbullying, whatever. You see, the thing is, those who uh, believe that cyberbullying is a fact and they end up, you know, committing suicide or everything, they, for the most part, they believe on the power of those carrying out the cyberbullying. So see, we go back to the five basic things: money, power, drugs, sex, and weapons. It is so intense, the amount of work that these bullies put in, these cyber bullies put in, that the person subscribes to the idea that, oh, he's powerful. But you see, power is not that. And if I ask you, did Jesus have power? Yes. Did he have authority? Yes. How many people did he kill? How many people did he hurt? How many people did he cyberbullying on? None. One thing does not imply the other. But the thing is, on our society, we believe that those bullying or those demonstrating power, we discussed this in the talk, those demonstrating power are carrying the values of our society. So I better subscribe to that idea and subdue and, I'm just going to kill myself. It's a matter of not understanding where you are in the global, in a society, where you are.
Perfect. Thank you. And then a final question here that we have. What we see nowadays is a lot of people complaining or pointing out the negative in everything. What do you say about this type of behavior?
Well, negative and positive depends on each one, right? The same stimulus can be positive or negative. You can put an image, okay, on a TV. You can both people can live look at the same thing happening. One of them is going to see as negative, the other is going to see as positive. And why is that? Because you see, our eyes see what the mental state is subscribing to. If I am a person who, let's say, I like revenge, for example, okay? So everything that you say, I'm going to say, oh, I'm going to have to go after that guy because you're never going to be talking to me something that's good because I'm in revenge mode, right? Or the other way around, if I'm in charity mode, fraternity mode, everything that you say, it's going to make me find what good things are in there. It's a point of focus. The focus of each one of us is what makes us to extract the information. For example, here's an example. You can put a song. You can play a song for two people, and you can just play a song. And, okay, at the end of the music, at the end of the song, you go to the first person and say, "What do you think?" And he's going to say, "Oh, I love these lyrics. Very profound, very beautiful." And you turn to the other guy and say, "What do you think?" And he's going to say, "Oh my God, that percussion. I love when the guy touched that instrument like this." You see, they're two different things. They had the same stimulus. One is focused on the musicians, the other is focused on the lyrics or the poetry or something. And it doesn't mean that one is right, the other is wrong. It's just a matter of choice. It's a matter of choice. So we choose to be negative because we carry negativity in us, or we choose to be positive because we carry positivities in us. It comes
Right.
from within. It's a
Right.
filter.
So you bring, I know this was, I said there was the last question, but I've been battling with this idea since you start, talking about the subscriber and the victim and the responsibility. I think it brings a different perspective, at least to me, and I hope to the public as well. Very profound perspective on the idea of responsibility, and I would like to clarify this with you. And this can serve as the your last comments, and then after you finish, if I may ask you to say the final prayer as well, we can go on with that. But the what I'm hearing, what I want to clarify, or get your support here, is to the shift in terms of responsibility. Not only responsibility as the goalie, as you said, because it's very clear, it's explicit, right? But what's implicit as well in terms of the responsibility that I have to change my focus on what you were telling me and what society is telling me in terms of you have to accept this or you are this way. Because as you were explaining the idea of the bully, I have a responsibility as well on what the control that the bully has over me. Right? Is that correct to say?
Yes.
And if that is correct, how do we change that responsibility? How do we change that focus? And we can, again, I would like to settle with this common question. And if you please would like to say the final prayer afterwards, we will close it that way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's responsibility is. I think in the beginning we discussed this a little bit. Responsibility and victimization. Responsibility means we acknowledge, to begin with, we have to acknowledge that something needs to be done, something is taking place, something is in course. Victimization means you are responsible for it. I can close my eyes, I can take a nap, and meanwhile, we can take care of it. That's not what we should do because it's not going to take us anywhere. For me to get from where I am to go somewhere, of course, better and to be happier, and so I had to I had to do this with my own efforts. I cannot have somebody else doing it for me. Happiness is personal and not transferable. Some people can be happy with very little things, and some other people have everything and they are profoundly unhappy because it's personal and not transferable. Uh, the idea that responsibility, us having a responsibility on things, puts us in a position that we control our happiness and not on depend on anybody else telling me that now you're going to be happy, now you're not going to be happy. See, happiness does not come down by divine decree. There is no such a thing. We're not going to get a letter in the mail from God saying, as of tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., you're happy. There is no such a thing. That if I'm waiting for that, I'm in victimization mode. I'm waiting for the Savior. So the more I'm waiting for the Savior, the more unhappy I am because the more of an internal conflict I'm living. And we need to get away from that. So responsibility is the driving force. It's what's going to make it happen. It's going to make it happen. In victimization mode, we might get to a point where will of making changes is not even present anymore. And will has to be present for changes. In responsibility mode, will is number one. Oh, go, let's do it. Let's get away from here. Let's go somewhere else. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's change this. Let's change that. In victimization mode, nothing happens. And it's not a very bright way of living our life.
Thank you so much, Luis. Amazing topic, as we have said here before. We are very happy to have you here as the first speaker of the month of October. This year flew by and it's flying by, so it's always good to see you again and connect with you. And from the warm state of Florida, send our warm greetings to everyone there as well at the center and all your work. God bless you and your family. And at this point, we would like just to invite you for the final prayer and say goodbye to everyone. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's concentrate on the image of Jesus. His eyes, his soft eyes looking at us. Let's walk with him towards the globe. Let's go with him into the hospitals where so many are sick, many of them not understanding why they are going through what they're going, revolt, rebellion. Let's ask Jesus to console them, to make them understand the need to be there for the time being. Let's just walk with Jesus into a prison where those who have been booked do not understand, most of them do not understand why they have to go through what they're going through. They are in revolt, they are in victimization, waiting for something to happen so they can get freed and live their lives. Let's ask Jesus and the higher spirits that can help these people living through this, that they can understand, that they can be educated to make better choices in the future, to not make the same choices they did in the past, because the road is known where it leads. Thank you, Jesus, for all the teachings that you gave us, all the examples that you set for us. Thank you, Jesus, for sending the consoler, Spiritism, that was able, through the hands of Allan Kardec, to explain in details, clear, black and white, why we have to follow what you taught us, why we have to walk with you. Thank you very much for our mentors and guides for being part of this live and being able to have us in harmony through the program. Thanks so much. God bless you.
Thank you.